Lu Jianming handed me a silver key on our third date. His apartment was sleek, modern, all glass and cold marble. I felt special standing there holding something so intimate. But then he said it, "Don't come unless I call." His voice was calm, like he was giving instructions, not making plans with a boyfriend. I nodded anyway, tucking the key into my pocket. I told myself this was just how busy men loved, carefully on their own terms. That night I lay in my own bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining a future where I could walk through his door anytime I wanted. But deep down I already knew. I was entering his private world, but I would never be part of his public one. Still, I wanted to believe I was enough. When my phone buzzed with his name, my heart leaped. "Come over," he texted. I grabbed my jacket and ran. At his door he smiled, but only barely. Then he touched my face, tilted my chin, and said, "Not like that." Softer. I didn't understand, but I tried again. The rules started small. Lu Jianming preferred I wore dark colors, navy, black, charcoal gray. "It suits you better," he said, though I'd always loved bright shirts. Then came the music. He hated anything loud or upbeat, so I switched to classical piano, even though it made me feel like I was sitting in a waiting room. Food was next. He'd order for both of us, never asking what I wanted. When I reached for dessert once, he gently moved the menu away. "Too sweet for you," he murmured. I thought he was taking care of me. I thought this was what love looked like, someone paying such close attention that they knew what I needed before I did. I stopped questioning him. I wore what he liked, listened to what he played, ate what he served. And he seemed pleased. He touched me more, smiled at me longer. I convinced myself I was lucky. But one evening while he showered, I opened his closet looking for a towel. Hanging in the back was a coat, expensive, wool, perfectly tailored. It was my exact size, but I had never seen it before, and I knew somehow it wasn't meant for me. We were tangled together in his bed, the city lights flickering through the window, when he whispered a name into my hair. It wasn't mine. The syllables were soft, familiar to his tongue, like he'd said them 1,000 times before. My entire body went stiff. He noticed immediately. He pulled away, his face closing off like a door slamming shut. He didn't apologize, he didn't explain. He just stood, grabbed his shirt, and walked out of the room. I lay there alone, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding in my chest. The name echoed in my head, foreign and sharp. I didn't ask him about it. I was too afraid of what he might say, or worse, what he might not say. That night after he fell asleep on the couch, I crept to the kitchen and found a notepad. My hand shook as I wrote it down, each letter burning into the paper. Su Yan. I didn't know who he was, but I knew somehow he was the reason I was here. I started noticing a pattern. When I laughed too loud, Lu Jianming would go quiet, his eyes distant. When I suggested we go out to a new restaurant, he'd dismiss it with a vague excuse. But when I sat still, when I listened without interrupting, when I smiled the way he'd taught me, soft, controlled, he'd reach for my hand. He'd kiss my forehead, he'd call me good. I realized I was being trained like a pet, learning which behaviors earned rewards. And the worst part, I let it happen. I swallowed my own voice, my own preferences, my own self, because his approval felt like sunlight. I needed it to survive. One Saturday he surprised me with a small velvet box. Inside was a silver ring, simple and elegant. My breath caught. For a moment I thought this was it, the moment everything changed. But then he said, "Don't wear it outside." My smile faltered. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek. "It's just for us," he whispered. I nodded. I slipped the ring on my finger and felt its weight. It was beautiful, but it was also a cage. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I'd come over early, using the key for the first time without being summoned, thinking I'd surprise him with coffee. But as I stood outside his door, I heard his voice through the crack. "He's convenient," Lu Jianming said into the phone, his tone flat and businesslike. I froze, the coffee cups trembling in my hands. Convenient. That's what I was to him, not loved, not cherished. Convenient. I should have left. I should have set the coffee down and walked away and never looked back. But I didn't, because an hour later he cooked for me. It was the first time he'd ever done that. He made soup from scratch, slicing vegetables with careful precision, stirring the pot while I sat at his counter and watched. He didn't say much, but his actions felt tender, deliberate, like he was trying to say something he couldn't put into words. When he set the bowl in front of me, his hand lingered on my shoulder. And I chose to believe in that touch instead of the word I'd heard. I stayed. God help me, I stayed. I picked up his phone by accident. It was lying next to mine, and they looked identical in their black cases. The screen lit up as I grabbed it, and I saw his photo gallery was open. I should have put it down immediately, but my eyes caught on one image and I couldn't look away. It was Lu Jianming, younger, his face open and unguarded in a way I'd never seen. He was smiling, really smiling, the kind that reached his eyes and crinkled the corners. And next to him stood another man. My heart stopped. The man had my hair color, my build, even my jawline. We could have been brothers, but it was worse than that, because on his hand, catching the sunlight in the photo, was a ring. The same ring I was wearing now. I zoomed in, my hands shaking, confirming what I already knew. It was identical, not similar. Identical. Lu Jianming walked into the room and I nearly dropped the phone. "Find what you were looking for?" he asked, his voice light but his eyes sharp. I swallowed. "No," I lied. He took the phone from my hand, his fingers brushing mine, and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes anymore. I stopped asking questions after that. I stopped wondering why he touched me the way he did, why he corrected my smiles, why I had to be someone softer, quieter, smaller. I stopped wondering about the name, the coat, the ring, the photograph. I buried it all deep inside and became exactly what he wanted, and it worked. Lu Jianming grew warmer, more affectionate. He held me longer in the mornings, he let me stay over on weeknights. He even introduced me to his assistant once, though only as a friend. I told myself I was winning him over, slowly dismantling whatever wall stood between us. I told myself that if I loved him hard enough, patiently enough, he'd eventually love me back the same way. We were lying in bed one evening, his arm draped over my waist when he said it. His voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. If he ever comes back, things will change. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. Who? I finally whispered. He didn't answer. He just tightened his grip on me like he was holding on to something he knew he'd lose. Su Yan returned on a Tuesday. I didn't know it yet, but my world had already started ending. Lu Jianming canceled our dinner that night with a single text. Something came up, don't wait for me. No apology, no explanation, no promise to reschedule. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my phone, trying not to feel the dread pooling in my stomach. The next morning, I went to his office. I told myself I was just dropping off the book he'd asked to borrow, but really I needed to see him. I needed to make sure I still existed in his world. That's when I saw him. He was tall, elegant, wearing a long coat and an easy smile. He stood outside Lu Jianming's building, checking his watch like he'd been there before, like he belonged. And when Lu Jianming walked out, his face transformed. I had never seen him look at anyone like that, not even me. They embraced, and I watched from across the street, my heart cracking open. Lu Jianming looked happy, truly, deeply happy, and I understood in that horrible sinking moment that I had never made him feel that way. I don't know what possessed me to go inside. Maybe I wanted confirmation. Maybe I needed to see it up close to make the nightmare real. Lu Jianming's assistant led me to his office, and when I walked in, they were both there. Lu Jianming looked surprised just for a second, then his face went smooth and unreadable. Su Yan turned to me with polite curiosity like I was a secretary or a deliveryman. "Oh, is this your assistant?" he asked Lu Jianming. "No," Lu Jianming said carefully. "This is Shen Yu, just my name, no label, no context, no claim." Su Yan extended his hand and I shook it on autopilot. His grip was firm, confident. He smiled at me, but his eyes were already dismissing me. "Nice to meet you," he said. Then he looked at Lu Jianming and laughed softly. "You always did have a type." Lu Jianming didn't respond. Su Yan tilted his head, studying me like I was a painting in a gallery. "You really do resemble me," he said, almost amused. I felt my stomach twist. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to ask Lu Jianming if I had ever been anything more than a stand-in. But I just nodded, smiled politely, and left. That night I finally asked. We were back at his apartment, sitting across from each other at the table where we'd shared so many silent meals. "Tell me the truth," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "What am I to you?" Lu Jianming looked at me for a long time, then he sighed, leaning back in his chair, and said it plainly. "You were supposed to make it easier," he admitted. "While he was gone, you helped like I was a tool, a bandage, a placeholder, and now?" I asked. "Now he's back," Lu Jianming said quietly, "and I don't know what happens next." I waited for him to choose me, to say that what we had mattered, that I mattered, but instead he reached across the table and took my hand. "I'd like you to stay," he said, not because he loved me, but because it was comfortable, because I was still convenient. I pulled my hand away, but I didn't leave, not yet. Su Yan moved in 3 days later. I watched it happen in real time, his suitcases in the hallway, his shoes by the door, his jacket on the hook where mine used to hang. Lu Jianming gave me the guest room. "Just until we figure things out," he said, like this was temporary, like I wasn't being erased. But I knew better. That first night I lay in the small, unfamiliar bed and stared at the wall. I could hear them in the next room, the low murmur of conversation, the sound of shared laughter, the creak of the bed I used to sleep in. I pressed my pillow over my ears, but it didn't help. Every sound was a reminder. I was no longer the person Lu Jianming came home to. I was just someone still living in his house. The next morning, Su Yan made coffee for two. He didn't ask if I wanted any. Lu Jianming didn't notice, or maybe he did and he just didn't care. I drank water from the tap and told myself I was fine, but my hands were shaking. Su Yan had opinions about everything. The way I folded the towels wrong, the way I left my books on the coffee table messy, the way I brewed tea too weak. And every time he said something, Lu Jianming would glance at me and nod like Su Yan's judgment was law. "You should really keep your things in your room, Shen Yu," Lu Jianming said one evening, picking up my notebook from the couch. He said it gently, but it stung like a slap. I wanted to scream that this had been my home too, that I'd lived here long before Su Yan returned. But I didn't. I just took the notebook and disappeared into the guest room. A few days later I saw Su Yan wearing the ring. Not hidden, not tucked away, out in the open, glinting on his finger as he typed on his phone. He wore it like it had always been his, and maybe it had, maybe I'd just been borrowing it. That night, alone in my room, I took the ring off. I set it on the nightstand and stared at it. It looked so small, so meaningless, but it had meant everything to me. Lu Jianming forgot my birthday. It wasn't malicious. He simply didn't remember. I didn't remind him. I spent the day at work, then came back to the apartment and microwaved leftovers in silence. But that same week, Su Yan mentioned he wanted a specific type of coffee, some rare blend from a shop that closed years ago. And Lu Jianming spent 2 hours tracking it down online, ordering it from a specialty importer just to surprise him. When Su Yan opened the package, his face lit up. You remembered, he said, his voice soft with something that looked like love. Lu Jianming smiled. Of course I did. I watched from the doorway, invisible. I had been with Lu Jianming for over a year, but Su Yan had been gone for 3 and Lu Jianming still remembered his coffee order like it was yesterday. That night I took the ring I'd removed days earlier and slipped it into my bag. I didn't put it back on. I didn't think Lu Jianming would notice, and he didn't. Su Yan cornered me in the kitchen one morning. Lu Jianming had already left for work and the apartment felt suffocating without him there as a buffer. Shen Yu, Su Yan said, his tone pleasant but firm. I think we should talk. I set down my mug, my heart already sinking. You're a nice person, he continued, leaning against the counter with the ease of someone who belonged. But this situation, it's uncomfortable for everyone. I didn't respond. I think it's time you left, he said, and though his voice was kind, his eyes were not. You can leave with dignity, no drama, just move on. I looked at him, this man who had taken everything from me without even trying. Does Lu Jianming know you're saying this? I asked. Su Yan smiled. He won't stop me. And that was the truth that broke me, because I knew he was right. Lu Jianming wouldn't fight for me, he never had. That evening when Lu Jianming came home, I waited for him to say something to tell Su Yan he was wrong, but he just looked at me with tired eyes and said nothing, so I started packing. I packed slowly, methodically, folding each shirt and placing each book into boxes like I was preparing for a trip, not an ending. Lu Jianming watched from the doorway but didn't offer to help. He didn't ask me to stay. When I was done, I stood in the middle of the guest room surrounded by my life in cardboard boxes and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a hollow, echoing emptiness. Shen Yu, Lu Jianming finally said. I looked at him, waiting. Thank you, he said quietly. For everything. I almost laughed. Thank you, like I'd done him a favor, like I hadn't given him a year of my life, my heart, my entire self. I picked up the first box and walked past him without a word. I made 3 trips to my car and he stood there the whole time, watching but never moving. When I grabbed the last box, I paused at the door. Goodbye, Lu Jianming, I said. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something but nothing came out. I left, and I didn't cry. Not then. I deleted his contact from my phone but didn't block him. I wanted him to know I'd chosen to erase him, that I didn't need a wall, I was simply done. I thought I'd feel lighter, free, but the days after I left felt like drowning in slow motion. I moved into a small studio apartment across the city and threw myself into work, into routines, into anything that kept me from thinking about him. But at night, alone in the silence, I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, wanting to text him about something small and stupid, before remembering there was no us anymore. Meanwhile, Lu Jianming had expected relief. He told himself Shen Yu leaving was for the best, cleaner, simpler, but the apartment felt wrong, too quiet. Su Yan filled the space with his presence, his opinions, his needs. He criticized the furniture, the lighting, the way Lu Jianming organized his schedule. You've gotten lazy, Su Yan said one evening, scrolling through his phone on the couch. We should go out more, you're boring now. Lu Jianming looked at him, this person he'd waited years for, and felt something crack inside. Su Yan wasn't the man he remembered, or maybe he was exactly the same and Lu Jianming had just forgotten what it felt like to be perpetually scrutinized. Late at night, Lu Jianming found himself staring at the empty guest room, and he hated how much he missed the quiet presence that used to fill it. It happened over dinner. Su Yan had been complaining about the restaurant, the service, the temperature of the wine. Lu Jianming listened with half his attention, his mind elsewhere. You're not even listening to me, Su Yan snapped. Lu Jianming blinked. I am. No, you're not. You've been distant for weeks. Su Yan set down his fork, his expression hard. If you're going to be miserable, just say so. I'm not miserable, Lu Jianming said, though he wasn't sure that was true anymore. Su Yan laughed bitterly. I came back for stability, Lu Jianming. I needed somewhere safe to land. I thought we could make this work. Stability, Lu Jianming repeated slowly. Not love, Su Yan looked at him like the answer was obvious. Love, we're adults, love isn't enough, I needed security, you offered that. The words settled between them like shattered glass. Lu Jianming thought back to the worst night of his life, a business deal that collapsed, a panic attack that left him gasping on the bathroom floor. Shen Yu had stayed with him until dawn, asking nothing, expecting nothing, just holding him through it. Su Yan had never done that, not once, and Lu Jianming realized with horrible clarity that he'd thrown away the person who had. I saw Lu Jianming again at a gallery opening. I didn't want to go, crowds weren't my thing, but my coworker had insisted and I'd been trying to say yes to things that scared me. I was standing near a painting, pretending to understand it when I felt eyes on me. I turned and there he was. Lu Jianming looked thinner, tired, like he hadn't been sleeping. For a moment we just stared at each other across the room. Then he started walking toward me. My first instinct was to run. But I forced myself to stay still, to breathe, to remember that I didn't owe him anything anymore. Shen Yu, he said when he reached me. His voice was soft, almost reverent. Hi, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. How have you been, he asked. Good, I said, and I meant it. I had been good, better than I'd expected. I'd been learning to be myself again, piece by piece. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I didn't give him the chance. I smiled politely the way you'd smile at a stranger and walked past him toward the exit. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. And as I stepped into the cool night air, I realized something. I had moved on, and he was just beginning to realize what he'd lost. Truth came from an unexpected source. A mutual friend, someone who'd known both Lu Jianming and Su Yan for years, reached out to Lu Jianming over coffee. I heard Su Yan's back, the friend said carefully. Yeah, Lu Jianming replied, stirring his drink without drinking it. How's that going? Lu Jianming didn't answer. The friend sighed. Look, I probably shouldn't say this, but Su Yan didn't leave because of work. Not really. Lu Jianming's head snapped up. What? He got a better offer. A guy in London, wealthy, connected. Su Yan thought it was his ticket to the life he wanted, but it didn't work out, so he came back. The words landed like stones. He told me it was a career move, Lu Jianming said slowly. He said he had no choice. The friend shook his head. He had a choice, he just didn't choose you. Lu Jianming sat there, the noise of the cafe fading into white static. Su Yan had lied. For 3 years, Lu Jianming had believed he'd been abandoned by circumstance, not choice. He'd shaped his entire life around that grief, and it had all been a lie. Lu Jianming confronted Su Yan that night. Tell me the truth, he said, his voice shaking with barely restrained anger. About London, about why you really left. Su Yan went still. For a moment he looked like he might deny it, then he sighed, setting down his glass. Does it matter, he asked. Does it matter? Lu Jianming repeated incredulously. You lied to me for 3 years. I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you everything. Su Yan's tone was defensive now. There was an opportunity. I took it didn't work out, so I came back. To me, Lu Jianming asked, or to stability? Su Yan flinched. You're twisting this. Answer the question. Fine, Su Yan snapped. I left because I wanted more than what we had. I thought I could have it. I was wrong, and yes. I came back because I knew you'd take me in. Is that what you want to hear? Lu Jianming stared at him, this person he'd loved so desperately, so completely. Did you ever actually love me? He asked quietly. Su Yan hesitated too long. Of course I did, he finally said, but his eyes slid away. And Lu Jianming knew. He'd spent 3 years mourning someone who'd never loved him back. Lu Jianming started comparing without meaning to. Su Yan never asked about his day. Shen Yu always had. Su Yan never sacrificed his plans. Shen Yu had rearranged his entire life. Su Yan took and took and took. Shen Yu had given without keeping score. One evening, Lu Jianming came home exhausted from a brutal meeting. Su Yan was on the couch scrolling through his phone. How was your day? Lu Jianming asked, desperate for connection. Fine, Su Yan said without looking up. Lu Jianming stood there, invisible, and remembered how Shen Yu used to greet him at the door, how he'd notice when Lu Jianming was tense and make tea without being asked. He pulled out his phone and searched for Shen Yu's contact before remembering it was gone. Panic set in. He opened his email, his old messages, anything that might have Shen Yu's number. When he finally found it buried in an old text thread, his hands were shaking. He typed and deleted 5 messages before settling on, "Can we talk?" He hit send. The message delivered. No response came. Lu Jianming stared at his phone for an hour, waiting, hopping, but Shen Yu had moved on, and Lu Jianming was finally understanding the weight of that. Took 3 days for Shen Yu to agree to meet. They sat in a cafe neither of them had been to before, neutral ground. Lu Jianming had rehearsed what he wanted to say, but seeing Shen Yu in person scattered his thoughts. Shen Yu looked different, stronger somehow, less like he was trying to fold himself into something smaller. Thank you for meeting me, Lu Jianming began. Shen Yu nodded, his expression polite but distant. I'm sorry, Lu Jianming said, the words rushing out. For everything. For using you, for not seeing you, for choosing him over you when you were the one who— Stop, Shen Yu interrupted gently. Lu Jianming fell silent. I appreciate the apology, Shen Yu said. I do, but it doesn't change anything. I know I hurt you, Lu Jianming said desperately. But I've realized I miss you, I miss us. Shen Yu smiled sadly. You don't miss me, Lu Jianming, you miss what I gave you, the comfort, the convenience, someone who didn't ask for anything back. The words hit like a punch. That's not— It is, Shen Yu said firmly, and I don't blame you anymore, but I also don't want to go back. Lu Jianming felt his heart breaking in a way it never had before, because this time he was losing someone who had actually loved him, and it was entirely his fault. Lu Jianming spent the next week thinking, really thinking about what he'd had with Shen Yu versus what he'd had with Su Yan. Su Yan had been his first love, the one that felt like fireworks and lightning, but it had also been volatile, unstable, full of conditions and expectations. Shen Yu had been quiet, steady, unconditional. He'd loved Lu Jianming without asking him to be anyone other than who he was. And Lu Jianming had mistaken that quiet love for something less important. He thought about the night Shen Yu stayed with him during his panic attack, about the way Shen Yu had learned his coffee order and never forgotten it, about how Shen Yu had changed himself trying to be enough. Shen Yu had never been a substitute. He'd been the real thing all along, and Lu Jianming had been too blind to see it. That night Lu Jianming told Su Yan to leave. This isn't working, he said simply. Su Yan looked more annoyed than hurt. You're going to regret this, he said. Maybe, Lu Jianming replied. But I already regret losing someone who actually mattered. Su Yan left without another word, and Lu Jianming stood in the empty apartment, finally understanding what he'd destroyed. Lu Jianming didn't contact Shen Yu right away. He knew he had no right to ask for anything, no right to expect forgiveness. But he also knew he had to try not to get Shen Yu back but to tell him the truth. He arranged to meet Shen Yu again, this time at the park where they'd once walked on a rare quiet Sunday. Shen Yu arrived late, hands in his pockets, looking cautious. "I ended things with Su Yan," Lu Jianming said. "I'm not telling you this because I want something from you. I'm telling you because you deserve to know." Shen Yu waited, his expression unreadable. "I was wrong," Lu Jianming continued. "About everything. You were never a substitute. You were the person who loved me when I didn't deserve it, and I threw that away because I was too stupid to see what was right in front of me." "Why are you telling me this?" Shen Yu asked quietly. "Because you deserve to hear it," Lu Jianming said. "And because I love you, not the way I loved before, not selfishly. I love you for who you are, not who I tried to make you." Shen Yu looked at him for a long time. "I don't know if I can trust that," he admitted. "I know," Lu Jianming said, "and I'm not asking you to, I just wanted you to know." I didn't give Lu Jianming an answer that day. I told him I needed time and he nodded, accepting it without argument. For weeks I thought about what he'd said. I thought about forgiveness, about second chances, about whether love was worth the risk of being hurt again. I also thought about myself, about who I'd been when I was with him and who I'd become after I left. I liked who I was now. I liked the person who didn't shrink himself to fit into someone else's life. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that Lu Jianming had changed. He'd acknowledged his mistakes, he'd let Su Yang go, he'd apologized without expecting anything in return. That mattered. One evening I texted him. "Coffee," he replied within seconds. "Yes." We met at the same cafe, but this time the air between us felt different, lighter. "I'm not the same person I was," I told him. "I know," he said. "Neither am I. If we try this again," I said carefully, "it has to be different. Equal, real? I want that," he said, and I believed him. "I don't know if we'll make it. But for the first time, I'm choosing this relationship for myself, not because I'm trying to be enough for someone else, but because I'm finally enough for me."